Hello and welcome. This is the Enlightened Illumineers podcast. If you would like to learn the finer details about the new trading card game called Disney Lorcana, be up to date with the latest news and meta, eventually when we get there, this is the podcast for you. I am your host, Trey. Online, you might also know me as Cabled. In this episode, I'll go over a ton of news from the past 2 weeks, all current and Sapphire cards. The main topic, which everyone is talking about, is the price of Lorcana and the MSRP of all the sealed product, and the Glimmer Gallery section going over Elsa. The first piece of news is actually also a correction from last episode, and that's about the story tab. Originally with the story tab, it was unreleased, and all that information actually was changed, and we should slightly disregard that because it was not 100% complete and should not have been released. With that said, now we do have a new article from The Gamer about the Disney Lorcana lore and the story behind it. They actually interviewed the narrative lead for Disney Lorcana, which is Samantha McFerrin. So let's go back to the actual Ravensburger Disney Lorcana website on the story tab, and I'll read the actual story synopsis from Ravensburger now. And it reads, "A swirl of color starlight appears, growing brighter and brighter until it's all you can see. When the burst of light subsides, you find yourself in a wondrous new place. Welcome to the great Illuminary, the center of magical realm called Lorcana. The Illuminary summoned you here because your powerful imagination. You follow a pulsing line through curving hallways and numerous rooms to emerge into a vast atrium. A mechanism there towers over an open book. Sparkling down above is a stream of colorful stars, each containing fragments of Disney stories. Nearby, a unique tool catches your eye. It's an ink caster, and when you pick it up, it feels both exciting and familiar. Instinctively, you hold it high above the book. Magic ink pulsing with energy flows through the mechanism and combines with the light from the story stars on a page of the lore in front of you, creating an image of Disney character. With the power of your ink caster, the image rises off the page. This is a glimmer, a new version of the character that only exists in this world. As an Illumineer, you can create glimmers of characters and its items to add to the lore of Lorcana, a treasure that must be preserved and protected at all costs. Soon other Illumineers across the globe will be called to the aid of Lorcana. You'll summon glimmers to quest with you as you search your missing lore and race against time. Only together you can protect this wondrous realm from threats. Will you answer the call?" So that was everything from the official Disney Lorcana story page, and we do have some more from the interview as well, or from the article. I won't go through every single detail on this article, but I'll point out some very key details that I would like to share. The first one is McFerrin mentioned that action cards like the recently revealed Dragonfire represents actions taken by Glimmers themselves, but they can also be taken by us, the Illumineers. That should get the gears turning about what future actions might look like. And this is just perfect for one major thing that I thought of or theorized in a previous episode, was that there might be some action cards that are the same exact ability on the actual Glimmer cards. Like the example I provided previously was for Elsa and her freeze ability. That might actually be its own freeze card that will be like a 2-costed card that you can exert or tap your other chosen character. It's nice knowing that one of my predictions did come true, and hope I'm right on more things, but I definitely will not be. For sure, there's so many different things about this game that I think is true, and then a week or two later, I'm like, no, that's not true. I don't believe that anymore. The second piece from this article that we learned is that all Floodborn characters will have the shift mechanic, and that it'll just be explained more throughout the future sets. So they won't full dump the lore on us right away. They'll gradually tell us the lore either through little story tab articles just like this, or through the cards flavor text as well. There already is some stories going on. It's just hard to piece them together until we get all of the cards. Another thing from this article is it says you're racing against time and you're working together to protect the realm. For me, that aligns really well with lore being the win con, and you have to gain X amount of lore. And it's not necessarily a fight against your opponent. It's just a race for the first one to get there. There's not much more you can extrapolate from this, but it is nice knowing that they're putting their own Disney spin on it, and it's not a fight, it's a race, and you're working together. It's just nice Disney PR type of stuff. In this article, it was mentioned that there's ink, story, stars, and lore. And someone from the community B Squared asked the Disney Lorcana team directly if ink, story, stars, and lore are all separate concepts in Lorcana. And they replied yes, that they are all separate things and that rules will be explained in spring. So originally people thought that just inks was something, which we believe would be the resource system or mana system or whatever someone wants to think about it. And then that the lore is the little diamond pips off to the side of the card, and that's the win condition. But now we have story stars, and in some of the images and videos, you could probably see what story stars are. There is this big container that has a bunch of colored and non-colored orbs, and we believe that's the combination of the ink or story stars, or maybe that's just story stars, and the ink is the staff. It all comes from the staff. It's hard to tell without the full rules or anything like that. But originally we only thought there was one type of resource system. Some people thought two, just because of the flourish and no flourish cost on the cards. But now with ink and story stars, a lot of people do think that there is a two resource system, which I don't disagree with them, but I don't fully think that's the system. But I think I am going to be wrong on it. It's just hard to see what the actual mechanic system will be in this game. I just hope it's soon, but I believe it's going to be a month out until we see the rules. There's definitely a ton more in this article, and I definitely recommend you reading it. But like I said previously, I'm not the biggest fan of lore. It's nice knowing it, but I'd rather get to the game and mechanics. But I did like to share a lot of the bulk of it, just to let everyone else know. We did learn a few mechanics from the article as well, so that is very nice. Next piece of news is we got product images and a GIF from the Illumineers Trove. This was tweeted about a week and a half ago by the Disney Lorcana team, and in the image GIF, we can see that there's two deck boxes in the Trove, which one will feature Aurora Dreaming Guardian, and the other will be Mickey Brave Little Tailor. In addition, it also showed off what the player's guide cover would look like, and it also says that the player guide will be 50 plus pages, full color on glossy paper. It'll have deck building tips, game strategies, powerful card combos directly from the design team, and a checklist to keep track of collecting the first chapter set. In addition to that, in the GIF, you could see the 15 damage counters in the Trove, and it shows that there's two different ones. They both look like a silver coin, and they have little indented numbers on them, and they're double-sided. Each one will have either a -1 counter on either side and a -3 counter on either side. In addition to that, the -3 counter is actually slightly bigger than the -1 counter for that as well. Personally, I probably won't ever use these damage counters, and I'll just be using dice to indicate how much damage has been done to my characters or wherever else damage will go. Just because originally I'm from Pokemon and we use dice for damage counting, and that's just a super easy, simple thing I'm already used to anyways. Also, as a friendly reminder that the Trove will come with 8 booster packs as well. In the video, it does look like it has a first edition stamp on it, but the Disney Lorcana team did correct that and said that there will be no stamp on the products. Another thing that we were told 2 weeks ago was that product will be sold at Disney parks. We're not sure if it's going to be all parks, if it's just going to be the US parks. We're not sure, but it is nice if you do work at one of these parks, or if you're an employee, you can get your 15% discount, or even a pass holder. You'll get discount on merchandise from the parks. So that's a really, really cool. Who knows if they get some kind of good allocation or not, if they get priority, or maybe it's just very, very small amounts and it just gets sold out the day of. Next up is a tweet from the Game Manufacturers Association, or GAMA for short. They tweeted that Disney Lorcana will be at GAMA Expo starting in April 24th through the 28th, I believe. In the tweet that GAMA did send out, it actually showed the full scan of Mickey Mouse. I was literally just talking about this last week, how we didn't have a new scan from it. We didn't know its rarity or set number. And now we do. So the Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailor is set number 115. and the rarity is legendary. So as of right now, there's actually 2 Ruby legendary cards, and this might be the only 2 legendary cards that we get from Ruby. There is like a ratio aspect to the common, uncommon, rare, super, and legendary cards for any kind of TCG. And some people believe that the ratio will be 12 commons, 10 uncommons, 6 rares, 4 super rares, and 2 legendaries per color. And so you would times those all up by 6, and that'll be our 204 cards for the set. They could change that ratio, of course. Some games actually have more rares than uncommons, or some have more super rares than rares. It's just whatever the game designers want. It all depends also with how they want the ratios to go for singles. Some companies just disregard a single secondary market and just have high ratios of legendaries, and then people have to buy more product to get more legendaries out there. It just all depends. I'm hopeful that Lorcana won't have a high-end legendary count. And in addition to that, legendaries might be more niche, which I'll talk about a little bit later. With all that said, let's go back to the announcement that Disney Lorcana will be at GAMA Expo. GAMA is for anyone in the industry to just show off what they have. It's actually not a public event. You have to be a GAMA member or a store owner of some form to get access to the expo. But anyone can actually be a GAMA member. You just have to pay like $150 for the year to be a member. It's something not cheap, but also not super expensive to be in a member. And you can just go anyways. Neat thing about this GAMA Expo event is it's not unheard of to get very early prototype product from game designers at this event. Even if it's like 6 months out before something's going to be announced, you might actually have a prototype for the game. With that said, it brings me to believe that Disney Lorcana will provide either starter decks or have people play there. Maybe not play, but at least give people in the industry like one starter deck as a, hey, make sure to buy our product and sell it at your store. This is a cool game. Here you go. I could see that happening. And like I said, the event starts April 24th through the 28th. So either the Disney Lorcana team that week of will actually reveal the rules. Nothing unofficially gets leaked out, and they're the ones providing the official rules. Or they might actually provide the rules the previous week on the week of the 17th through the 21st. They might tweet out the rules in like a 3-day session. Maybe some videos to go along with it as well, which I believe they said they're going to do. So that brings it back to why I think the rules are about a month out, is we'll either get them the week of April 17th or the week of April 24th. All because it goes back to Disney Lorcana being at this GAMA Expo. And I will say thanks to Jaunty for providing this information about GAMA Expo and that people can get product very, very early from game designers. Now, with a few of those news pieces out of the way, let's start going over all Sapphire and Steel cards that we currently have. The first Sapphire card is Robin Hood. Its full name is Robin Hood Unrivaled Archer. It's a 6 cost with the Flourish. It has 4 attack and 4 defense. The traits are Storyborn and Hero. Robin Hood has 2 abilities. The first one is Feed the Poor. And it reads, when you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand, you draw a card. Its second ability is Good Shot, which reads, during your turn, this character gains evasive. They can challenge characters with evasive. On the right, this Robin Hood has 2 lore pips. It has the book flavor text separation line, and the flavor text says, we never rob, we just sort of borrow a bit from those who can afford it. The artist is John Lauren. It's set number 157 out of 204. It has the super rare as the rarity, which is the silver diamond one. Previously, I thought Robin Hood was going to be some kind of aggro card, but the more I'm thinking about it, the more cards that are being revealed. For example, later I'll talk about Tigger was revealed. It's making me believe that this is actually some kind of control unit, control character. In a previous game that I played at the start, it had a problem with a bunch of elusive characters, or for Lorcana, I believe it's the same exact keyword as evasive. All those elusive characters were just attacking without being blocked. And this could be like a 1 of or a 2 of in some kind of control deck just to try to save face on any evasive characters, and you need to block those or stop them from getting lures or however it may occur. With that being said, though, there is an issue with Feed the Poor ability being that doesn't necessarily synergize with control, since control decks usually have a big hand, and when you are facing versus an aggro player, they're going to have a very small hand because they just throw down all of their small units. I'm still going back and forth with this Robin Hood card. We'll just have to wait and see with more cards to see what archetype this would actually fit into. Next Sapphire card is Aurora. The full name is Aurora Dreaming Guardian. She's a 5 cost with the Flourish. She has 3 attack and 5 defense. Her traits are Floodborn, Hero, and Princess. Since she's a Floodborn, she has the Shift ability, and her Shift is 3. You may pay 3 resource to play this on top of one of your other characters named Aurora. Her second ability is Protective Embrace. Your other characters gain ward. Opponents cannot choose them except to challenge. She has 2 lore pips off to the side. She has the pen flavor text separation line, and that flavor text reads, "As this princess slumbered, her power awoke." The artist is Nicholas Cole. She is set 139 out of 204. She has the super rare rarity symbol, which is the silver diamond one. I personally really like this Aurora just because it's some kind of control card. I could see it in some kind of aggro evasive deck. Like I said previously, if evasive does become some kind of menace, and that is a very popular deck, you might actually want this Aurora card in there so that when you are trying to gain lore with your evasive characters and they can't be attacked by non-evasive characters, but you can still target them with spells, for example, like Dragonfire. But if you have this Aurora out, then that Dragonfire cannot banish one of your evasive characters. The next card is Scar. He's a 6 cost with the Flourish. His name is Scar Mastermind. Scar has 5 attack and 4 defense. He is Storyborn Villain with the ability Insidious Plot. When you play this character, chosen opposing character gets -5 attack this turn. Its flavor text is, "The best plans involve a little danger, just not for me." And I really think that flavor text is spot on for Scar. We don't know the lore pip on this, and I toss between 2 and 1 lore pips. If it's 2, I feel like this is a very broken card and perfect for any control deck, which I'm excited about. But if it's 1 lore pip, I still think it's a perfectly good card and should be in most Sapphire decks. Again, no illustrator is known and no set number as well. Scar reminds me of my favorite card from the digital card game Legends of Runeterra, and that card is Ash, the champion. Ash was a Frostbite deck, and Frostbite is change your opposing character's attack to 0, and every time Ash swung in for an attack, it would Frostbite the strongest enemy character. This is not a 1-to-1 direct translation for Scar, but it'll definitely be used in the same aspect to put your opponent's highest attacker to 0 or close to 0, and then take it out with something smaller and save your other characters so that they can gain lore later. Last Sapphire card is not an actual card. It's one of those cards that are on the starter deck but you don't actually have yet, and that's Human Form Maleficent. That's pretty much all I have to say about it, really. It's not much to talk about. Maybe I can just rave about it being a control card just because the image of this Human Form Maleficent has a wand or a staff, and that's a control thing. Who knows, actually. With that being the last Sapphire card, we can go to our steel cards. And for the longest time, we had just one steel card and then one starter deck image. And so everyone in the community, not necessarily me, but a lot of people in the community, kept posting a bunch of memes on Twitter about steel cards. Is the next card to be a steel card? And the memes are very great for the last 2 weeks or so. We actually got 2 new steel cards in the past 2 weeks. And it actually happened in both steel cards actually came out in the same exact week. So I'll start with the first steel card that we've gotten, which was an original D23 card, and that's Captain Hook. The full name is Captain Hook Forceful Duelist. It's a 1 cost with the flourish. The attack is 1 and the defense is 2. The traits are Dreamborn, Villain, Pirate, Captain. It has the ability Challenger +2. While challenging, this character gets +2 attack. It has 1 lore pip off to the right. It has the pen flavor text separation line, and that flavor text reads, "He loves to make light of foes' predicament." The artist is Marcel Berg. He is set 174 out of 204. And I believe this is the common rarity, which is the circle, or what I like to refer to as the rock. I think this Captain Hook card is honestly the best card out of all of the cards we know so far. Just in a vacuum by itself with like no rules, it seems like the best bang for your buck value for any card in the game so far. It's a 1 cost, so you're just going to always have this down very early. You might never want to use it to gain lore, but it definitely is used to stop your opponent to gain lore, or at least stop them from gaining future lore on cards that they've already gained lore with. For example, if your opponent has a Cruella de Vil gaining lore and they successfully gain lore, but then in a future turn, you can use this Captain Hook to challenge that Cruella de Vil and knock out that Cruella de Vil. They will use Cruella's ability to bring back Captain Hook into your hand, but it's a cheap 1 cost. You can just play it back down again. It just has some insane value to what it can do. It's just not a very good lore gaining card with the 1 lore pip. With that said, it having 1 lore, a lot of people think that this is going to be an aggro card, and a bunch of the community members started shifting off of this. Get it? Shift. Anyways, a lot of people have started to think that this is more of a tempo card, just because you're not going to really want to gain lore with this, and as far as we know, the win condition is to gain a bunch of lore. With this Captain Hook, you're not necessarily doing that at all, so it could be some kind of tempo mid-range type of card. Next steel card is one of the starter deck images, so there's no text or anything about this card, but it is Simba. He looks very stoic. Not sure what he will do, but he's definitely a steel card and he's going to be in the starter deck. Those are the only 2 steel cards that we had for the longest time. And that's a perfect transition now to all the new cards that we've gotten in the past 2 weeks. And we've actually gotten 4 new cards, and 2 of them actually being steel. With these 2 steel cards, I believe it was actually unplanned from their PR campaign or their marketing campaign. Just because both these steel cards, they were full revealed cards, so we were actually given the lore pips, the artist, and the set numbers. One of them was just like randomly on a Monday morning. They're just like, here's your steel card. You guys have been memeing us too much. The next one was attached in the Game Radar article, which I'll go over later, that had all the pricing. That article also had a card in there, which was a full reveal as well. I'll start going over the brand new cards now. The first reveal card that we got was Gantu, and the full name is Gantu, Galactic Federation Captain. He's an 8 cost with the flourish. His attack is 6, and his defense is also 6. The attributes are Storyborn, Alien, and Captain. It has 1 ability, which is called Under Arrest, and it reads, characters with cost 2 or less cannot challenge your characters. He has 2 lore pips to the right, has the book flavor text separation line, and that reads, relax, enjoy the trip, and don't get any ideas. The artist is Luis Huerta. He's set 178 out of 204. He has the legendary rarity symbol, which is the gold pentagon. This was such a really good released card that we got 2 weeks ago. It has multiple reasons for that. One is being it was our second steel card that we've ever gotten, just out of the blue. It also shows that there's a possibility that all legendary cards are going to be very niche cards, meaning that you might only want 2 maximum in a deck if the deck building restriction is 4 of a kind for each card. And if legendaries are going to be very niche, like a 1 or 2 of in a deck, that will definitely bring down the cost of each deck, just because legendaries aren't going to be very, very good cards or staples in the meta, and every deck's going to need 4 of Gantus or whatever. You're only going to actually ever want 2 Gantus. In addition to that, this Gantu shows that the Disney Lorcana team is starting to bring in some very complex game mechanics into Lorcana. One of those mechanics is called Floodgate, and Floodgate is I believe it was from Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe it was from Magic. I can't fully remember. But Floodgate is a type of card effect that negates some other player's normal actions. So for example, this Gantu stops all of your opponent's 2 or less costs from challenging your characters. That's an example of a Floodgate. Another example of a Floodgate would be if there's an effect that says only odd costed characters could be played. I don't think that's going to be an actual card, but that's just an example. This Gantu also basically directly counters Stitch, because Stitch has the ability of, if you play 2 costs or less, draw a card. So if Stitch has a bunch of 2 costs out, and then if you have a Gantu, all of Stitch's 2 costs are just not going to be able to do anything except gain lore by themselves, then you're not going to stop the Gantu player from gaining any lore as well. Gantu's under arrest ability also reminds me of Legend of Runeterra keyword Fearsome, which has a very similar ability that says only 3 costs or more can block this character. It's not necessarily the same, because it's not on all your characters, because each Legends of Runeterra unit has to have this ability instead of one big unit has an ability that says they can't be blocked. One thing that I do like about this Gantu is it kind of goes hand in hand with Stitch being a combo card. If you actually play Stitch with Gantu, if you have a bunch of your 2 costed cards down and you swing in for lore or any situation and you have the Gantu, then all your low cost cards can also not be blocked by other low costed cards. With that being said though, you're going to have the 6 costed Stitch down, or 4 cost if you use the shift ability, and then the 8 cost Gantu down as well. That's really high cost for an aggro player, but it could be some kind of aggro combo deck. I just can't wait for the more cards and the rules to figure out what type of decks can be made. The next new revealed card is also a steel card, and it's Tinkerbell. The full name is Tinkerbell Tiny Tactician. She is a 3 cost with the flourish. Her attack is 2 and her defense is 4. She has the attributes Dreamborn, Ally, and Fairy. She has one ability, which is Battle Plans, which reads Exert Tinkerbell, then you would draw a card and then choose a card to discard. She has 1 lore pip off to the side. She has the pen flavor text separation line, which reads, sometimes all you need is a little tactical genius. The artist is Grace Tran. She is set 194 out of 204, and it has the common rarity symbol, which is the circle rock. Just like Hook, I think this Tinkerbell is such a very good value card. One is you can keep cycling through your cards that you want. You don't actually get any card advantage off this. You're actually always going to be down 1 card because you play down your Tinkerbell, that's the 1 card, and then every time you use her ability to draw a card, you discard a card, so that's a net 0. So you're always going to be down 1 card with this. With that said, you're always going to choose what cards you want, and if you're in some kind of a pickle and you need answer to something else and you don't have it in your hand, you can exert this Tinkerbell to draw and then discard some useless card that you don't need to go through your deck a little bit faster. This is a mechanic taken from Magic the Gathering, and I believe it's originally from a card called Merfolk Looter, and the term to use this kind of ability is usually called Looter as well. Just like Captain Hook, I think both these cards are just going to be in easily 4 of in all steel decks. They just seem like such good values. And in addition to that, these are common cards, which means singles for a steel deck, or at least these 2 cards, is going to be very cheap. And I hope most other common cards are actually going to be the meta staple, because that will bring down the value of each deck. And that's good for players since you're not going to have to spend a ton on meta decks. For example, with Pokemon, meta decks can range from $50 to $200, while for Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or even Flesh and Blood being about $200 for meta decks, or even up to $600 or $1,000. Those have all been the steel cards. Now let's go to 2 more cards. The first card is Tigger. The full name is Tigger Wonderful Thing. He is a 6 cost with the Flourish. He has 4 attack and 4 defense. The attributes are Storyborn and Tigger. He has 1 keyword on this, which is evasive, and that means only characters with evasive can challenge this character. He has no lore pips right now just because it was the typical Ravensburger logo covering up the right side, although I do believe that this Tigger will have 3 lore pips just to go and match the cost and pip ratio that Mickey Brave Little Tailor has. This Tigger has the pen flavor text separation line, which reads, "I am the bounciest bouncer that ever bounced." The artist is Kenneth Anderson, and we do not know the actual set number as well. So with this new reveal card is exactly what I mean by it could be worrisome with more evasive characters. They do seem like it comes with a higher cost, but it also has an inherent higher lore pip ratio. If this Tigger does have 3 lore pips, if it has 2, it will be a little bit lower, but still a very good card. Just because evasive can go unchecked very easily at the start of new card games. Some of you may wonder why Tigger has the ability Tigger. That's because he's the only one. At first I thought this was a typo because I completely forgot that Tigger has that song or jingle, whatever, that he is the only one. Not quite sure what kind of deck Tigger will go into. Maybe it is going to go into a Mickey deck, some kind of evasive deck, but not 100% sure. We just need more cards. Next new card up is Lady Tremaine. Her full name is Lady Tremaine Wicked Stepmother. She is 6 cost without the Flourish. She has 1 attack and 5 defense. Her attributes are Dreamborn Villain. She has 1 ability and it's Do It Again! And that reads, "When you play this character, you may return an action card from your discard to your hand." Also with this card, just like Tigger, there is no lore pips off to the side just because it was also covered with the Ravensburger logo. She has the pen flavor text separation line, and that reads, "If your chores are done, then clearly you ... Again, the reason why this flavor text just ends like that is because the Ravensburger logo is also covering it up, so we don't actually see the full flavor text. Honestly, can't remember if I have talked about what the flourish or non-flourish is, and we clearly don't know the actual reason for them. There obviously is some kind of specific reason why some do and some don't. My theory is that if you don't have the flourish on the card, then you can only play or have one of these cards on the board at once. So, for example, this Lady Tremaine, you can only have one of her on the board. Or for another example is if for some reason you put her on the board and it gets knocked out, you can't put down another one. You've already used your one of Lady Tremaine for that turn. Another good example is Dragonfire. You can only use one Dragonfire in a turn just because it's such a good ability. Other examples is Hades. If you have 2 Hades out, Hades' ability will double stack with all your villains, so you'll just get a ton of lore points. I'm not sure if this is the actual reason for the flourish. Some have the idea of that if you don't have the flourish, then you can use any colored resource to play that card down. But if you do have a flourish, you need to have at least one or maybe majority of that color's resource to play it down. I don't like the idea of that, but I could be completely wrong just because we know that there's ink and story stars. So there might be some two resource system, and that could align with this flourish and not flourish. So going back to just Lady Tremaine herself, I do like this card. This type of card, a lot of people in the Magic community call them big butts, just because it has a very low attack and a very high defense. I like pairing this Lady Tremaine up with a Cruella de Vil. They're both in the same color, and if your Cruella de Vil gets banished, you can bring back this Lady Tremaine and use it again to bring back another card from your discard pile. I also like the idea that they're adding return cards from your discard to your hand type mechanics this early in a set. So it does show that they're not just going to do some kind of like typical make big guys hit other big guys type of game. They're actually putting some good complex mechanics in the first set, and that's very exciting for me. It's not going to just be plain and simple. Now that's been the brand new cards that have been revealed the past 2 weeks. I know we're almost 40 minutes in, but we just have one more piece of news and then we can get to the Glimmer Gallery section. This piece of news is an article from Gamers Radar, and it shows what the prices are going to be, what the MSRP is for Canada, United States, and Europe. At the start of this article, they actually did mention that Set 2 will be out December 1st or November 17th at hobby stores. So that does line up with that NL Spieler article that was released about 3 weeks ago. So the first sealed product that we'll talk about with its price is the starter decks. Each one will cost $16.99 in the US, $21.99 in Canada, and $17.99 in the UK. For a starter deck, this is a very good price, with the fact that you also get a pack inside this. I'll skip ahead just a little bit and say that the packs also cost $5.99. So theoretically, this starter deck costs you $12, and it does have the best ratio of dollar to amount of cards you get, just because you have a full 60 card deck and you get an additional 12 cards with the booster pack. I really like the model that they're going with here on very cheap sealed product, which I'll say the prices for all the other ones later. If you have a bunch of cheap sealed products, you'll get that net new person into trading card games with cheaper sealed products, especially cheaper starter decks. And then eventually they might actually start going to the local card shops to play weekly, and then they'll start buying more meta decks and eventually actually play at any type of bigger events as well once those come out. Next up is the booster pack prices. The prices are, the US is $5.99, Canada is $7.99, and UK is $4.99. And that's said with booster boxes being 24 packs in a box. One box MSRP will be $143 and some odd cents. In addition to that, we've been told that cases hold 4 booster boxes, so that will be a price of about $575. The industry standard for booster packs is about $4.50. So these Lorcana booster packs have an additional $1.50 premium on them. That could be explained for 2 different reasons, maybe even 3. One is Disney, you always have a Disney tax on anything that is Disney related. In addition to that, Ravensburger is known for higher quality and higher products, and their puzzles are usually more expensive as well. So that could explain it. Another reason why I think it's this high, and I guess this is a 2-parter for this reason. One is if you have cheaper sealed products, you can get away with higher costed booster packs. In addition to that, there are 2 rares guaranteed in each booster pack, and that could possibly give a reason for the higher $6 price tag. I'm not the biggest fan of the booster boxes being at this $6 price, but with that said, singles is always your best bet to buy cards. Even if you are a collector or a player, it's just always cheaper to buy singles. But it is fun opening packs. Nothing can really beat that dopamine hit on opening packs. It's literally just gambling, but with a little pretty bow on top of it. With there being 2 rares, I do have a friend that basically plays any TCG that comes out, and he said that 2 rares in a pack is typical for Japanese trading card games, and usually those games have cheaper singles. So I'm pretty hopeful with the singles market being cheaper than these sealed packs. So with $6 being the price tag for these booster packs, it might not matter too much if the single market is cheaper. Next up is the gift set. In the US, the gift set price is $29.99. In Canada, it's $39.99. In the UK, it's $27.99. This is probably the worst bang for your buck for all this sealed product. That being said, you do get some nice lore tracker tokens. You get 32 damage counters, which it just might be the same exact ones from the Illumineers Trove. You do get the oversized cards for Mulan and Hades, but those are usually just a collector's item and not anything to do with the actual game. Next product is the Illumineers Trove. The cost is $49.99 in the US, $64.99 in Canada, and $49.99 in the UK. This is the second best bang for your buck product to get, and I'm definitely going to pick up 1, maybe even 2 of these, or possibly even 3 and just keeping 1 sealed. Just because you get 8 booster packs inside of it, and you get 2 deck boxes. A lot of people are very upset about this high MSRP price for these booster packs, which is a little justified, but that being said, the trading card game market has not fully caught up to actual inflation per booster pack. I believe 20 years ago, booster packs has still been about $3, and they've only raised about $1.50. I do think that everyone else will catch up to Lorcana, and Lorcana is just starting off strong just so that they don't have to raise prices in a couple years. I would like to say to anyone is do not pre-order anything that is above MSRP price, just because you might be able to find any of that stuff at a big box store on release day. In addition to that, you might not actually get the product that you are pre-ordering, and you're just giving a store an interest-free loan for X amount of months. There's a lot going around from distributors that are saying allocation is going to happen a lot with Lorcana. We just don't know how much each store is going to get. And each store might not even know until a month or 2 away from actual launch. Some distributors have a last pre-order date coming up in the next 2 weeks. So some of those distributors might know, but majority of your product, you won't know the full amounts until a month away. Ideally, you should be talking to multiple local game stores around you just to put in your name, just to be on some kind of wish list callback number to be able to be called back to say, hey, we have product. I know you want to get 2 boxes, but we're only going to give 1 box to each person. Just to explain a little bit about allocation, this happens with all TCG games except for maybe Magic the Gathering. For example, if a store tries to order 10 cases of a booster box, the distributor might only give you 2 cases. So instead of getting 40 boxes, you're actually only getting 8 boxes. That's just a very extreme example, but it actually can happen like that. I'm very hopeful with Lorcana and the team to having enough printed out, but I don't actually think they'll print enough to demand. I'm fortunate enough to have connections with a local game store, so I should at least be able to get 2 boxes. I do have enough store credit to buy a full case, which I'm hoping to get. In addition to that, I do have an online local game store that I buy through that I have credit as well, and I'm hoping to get a case from them. But it is understandable for local game stores to only sell Lorcana locally, just because if they have very bad allocation issues. With the news finished, I can now get to the Glimmer Gallery section. If you don't know, the Glimmer Gallery is a segment that'll go over a new Glimmer character card and describe the movie or media that they're from. I'll provide movie or show details, trivia tidbits, and finally go over what the card is within Disney Lorcana and what kind of decks they'll work with eventually. This week's episode, I'll go over Elsa, which is from the movie Frozen and Frozen 2. I'll actually go over both Frozen and Frozen 2 information and tidbits. First, I'll go over Frozen. Frozen was released on November 19th, 2013. It has a runtime of 102 minutes, It has a budget of 150 million and it grossed 1.3 billion worldwide. Its tomato meter is 90% and its audience score is 85%. And to me, those both seem justified. Frozen is definitely one of my top 5 Disney movies. The movie synopsis for Frozen is: when their kingdom becomes trapped in a perpetual winter, fearless Anna joins forces with mountaineer Kristoff and his reindeer sidekick to find Anna's sister, Snow Queen Elsa, and break her ice spell. Although their epic journey leads them into encounters with mystical trolls, a comedic snowman, harsh conditions, and magic at every turn, Anna and Kristoff bravely push forward in a race to save their kingdom from winter's cold grip. Here are a few trivia tidbits from Frozen. This is the final Disney animated canon film to use the old rendering before switching to Hyper Ion rendering. This is the 3rd Disney princess film to earn a PG rating after Tangled and Brave. Animation from Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph is reused throughout the movie. In the original fairy tale, the Snow Queen promised Kai a pair of skates if he solved a puzzle for her. As reference to this, Elsa gives Anna a pair of skates at the end. This is the first Disney Animated Studios film to play a different song over the company's opening sequence. This is the first Walt Disney Animation Studios animated film to win an Oscar since Tarzan, and the first to win more than one since Pocahontas. During Let It Go, Elsa's hair actually goes through her left arm in the animation. This is the first Walt Disney Animation Studios film to gross $1 billion worldwide. It's only second to Toy Story 3, but that's actually a Pixar movie, but still under the Disney umbrella. Now let's get to the Frozen 2 information. Frozen 2 was released on November 22nd, 2019. It has a runtime of 103 minutes. It had a same budget of 150 million, but it grossed 1.5 billion worldwide. I guess that one extra minute nets them the additional $200 million for gross revenue. It has a tomato meter of 77% and an audience score of 92%. I'm a little indifferent on that just because I preferred Frozen 1 more than Frozen 2, although I actually like Frozen 2 music better than Frozen 1. The movie synopsis for Frozen 2 is: Elsa, the Snow Queen, has an extraordinary gift, the power to create ice and snow. But no matter how happy she is to be surrounded by people of Arendelle, Elsa finds herself strangely unsettled after hearing a mysterious voice calling out to her. Elsa travels to the enchanted forest and dark seas beyond her kingdom, an adventure that soon turns into a journey of self-discovery. Here is Frozen 2 trivia. This is the second Walt Disney animated film to feature 12 minutes of end credits after Zootopia. I'm not actually sure what this means, maybe that's just the amount of time. This is the first Walt Disney Animation Studios sequel in the Disney Animated Features canon to focus on the secondary character, in this case Elsa, rather than the protagonist of the original film, thus promoting Elsa as the main female character. This is, to date, the only film in the Disney Animated Feature canon where the central antagonist dies before the events of the movie takes place, and the closest a film has come to be without a villain. Despite Elsa being the main protagonist, she still isn't listed at the top of the credits, instead it's still Anna. This was the last Disney animated feature film to be released theatrically before the events of COVID-19 pandemic. Despite being the highest grossing fully animated film of all time, this film was not given an Academy Awards nomination for Best Animated Feature Film, unlike the first film. Instead, Toy Story 4 won that nomination. Elsa is a 3 cost with the Flourish, and this one is Elsa Snow Queen with 2 attack and 3 defense. She's a Dreamborn, Hero, Queen, and Sorcerer for the attributes. She has one ability called Freeze, and it has the exert symbol. So you would exert or tap Elsa to do this ability, and this ability reads, exert chosen opposing character. Her flavor text is, recreated by magical ink, Elsa found herself in an unfamiliar new world. Fortunately, ice works the same way everywhere. She has 1 lore pip to the right. The artist is Nicola Cole. She is set number 41 out of 204. And it looks like she has the uncommon rarity symbol, which is the book one. I am personally very excited about this Elsa card, and it is most likely going to be the first deck I make. I am a control player at heart, and being able to tap any of your other opposing characters so they can't attack, defend, or go on quest is exactly how I like to play. With that to end, thank you for joining me on this Enlightened Illumineers podcast episode. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and you come back for more. You can find me personally at Cabled on all social media platforms, and you can find the podcast at EN Lumineers on all social media platforms. If you have any questions or comments or any feedback, please at me or the podcast. My name is Trey Cabled. I hope I have enlightened you with all Disney Lorcana news, and there'll be plenty more to come.